My name is Fern, and at 56 years old, I thought I knew what it meant to be a mother. For 33 years, I poured everything into raising my daughter alone. We had matching pajamas, movie nights, and dreams we built together. Then she married money, and suddenly, I became the embarrassment she needed to hide. Last Christmas, she banned me from the family gathering. This year, she did it again. But what Tessa didn't know was that I had just moved into my brand new $25 million mansion. Before we dive into what happened next, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. If you've ever felt undervalued by someone you love, hit that like button. And please subscribe, because this story is about to show you that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. Now, let me tell you how my daughter learned that wealth doesn't define worth, and blood should always be thicker than money. I raised Tessa completely on my own from the time she turned 3 years old. Her father, Gregory, walked out on us for another woman and never looked back. No child support, no birthday cards, nothing. It was just me and my baby girl against the world. Those early years were brutal. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. Mornings, I did hair at a small salon in Queens called Bella's. The owner, a sweet Italian woman named Rosa, let me take the early shift so I could be home when Tessa got out of school. Evenings after I put Tessa to bed, I'd work as a part-time bookkeeper for local businesses. I'd sit at our tiny kitchen table with a calculator and stacks of receipts, my eyes burning from exhaustion while Tessa slept in the next room. We lived in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a walk-up building. The heat barely worked in winter and the air conditioning was non-existent in summer. But I made it home. I painted Tessa's room a soft lavender. I found furniture at thrift stores and refinished it myself. I sewed curtains from fabric I got on sale. Every penny I earned went toward making sure my daughter had what she needed. Tessa never went without. Her clothes were always clean and presentable, even if they came from discount stores. She had nutritious meals, even if I ate ramen so she could have chicken. When she needed school supplies, she got the good ones. When her class went on field trips, I made sure she could go. She was brilliant, my Tessa. Straight A's all through elementary school. She devoured books like candy. By middle school, she'd tested into one of those competitive programs. By high school, she earned a scholarship to a prestigious private school in Manhattan. I was so proud I cried for an hour when we got that acceptance letter. Those were the good years. The years when Tessa and I were a team. We'd cook spaghetti together on Sunday nights, her standing on a stool to stir the sauce. We'd watch old movies and share a bowl of popcorn. We'd walk through Central Park on weekends, feeding the ducks, talking about everything and nothing. She'd tell me about her dreams of going to college, of having a career, of making something of herself. And I'd promise her that I'd do whatever it took to help her get there. She used to hug me tight and say, "When I grow up, I'll take care of you, Mom. I promise. You won't have to work so hard anymore." I'd kiss the top of her head and tell her I didn't mind working hard, that she was worth every sacrifice. And I meant it. Then Tessa went to Columbia University on a full academic scholarship. I'd never been prouder. My daughter, the first in our family to attend an Ivy League school. She was going to have opportunities I never dreamed of. That's where she met Preston. Preston Whitmore came from old money. His family owned half of Manhattan, or so it seemed. Real estate empire going back 3 generations. He was handsome, polished, confident. Everything I'd want for my daughter at first glance. Tessa brought him home to meet me during her sophomore year. He was polite enough, shaking my hand, complimenting the small dinner I'd prepared, but I could see it in his eyes. The way he glanced around our shabby apartment, the way he carefully avoided touching anything, the subtle tightening of his smile when Tessa showed him her childhood bedroom with its worn carpet and secondhand furniture. He didn't say anything cruel. He didn't have to. His discomfort spoke volumes. After that visit, things started to change. Tessa began coming home less frequently. She'd make excuses about studying, about club meetings, about networking events. When she did visit, she seemed distracted. She'd check her phone constantly, responding to texts from Preston or his friends. I noticed her wardrobe changing too. Designer labels started appearing, handbags that cost more than my monthly rent. She'd mention casually about dinners at restaurants I'd only read about in magazines, weekend trips to the Hamptons, gallery openings in Chelsea. One Saturday, she called to say she wanted to bring Preston over for dinner. I spent the entire day cleaning, cooking, making everything perfect. I bought flowers for the table. I wore my nicest dress. Then an hour before they were supposed to arrive, Tessa texted, "Actually, Mom, let's meet at a restaurant instead. Preston made reservations at this great place in Soho. My heart sank, but I told myself I was being silly. She was just trying to treat me to something nice. At the restaurant, I felt completely out of place. Everyone around us looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. The prices on the menu made my stomach drop. When I ordered the cheapest entree, Tessa looked embarrassed. Preston talked the entire meal about real estate markets and investment portfolios. I smiled and nodded, feeling smaller with every passing minute. After graduation, Tessa took a position at Whitmore Properties, Preston's family company. She moved into a luxury apartment in the financial district that Preston's parents owned. She started wearing clothes that cost more than I made in a month. Our weekly phone calls became monthly, then every few months. She was always busy, always had somewhere to be, someone more important to see. 2 years later, Tessa and Preston got married. The wedding was at the Plaza Hotel, 300 guests, a dress that cost $40,000, a cake that was 6 feet tall, ice sculptures, a live orchestra, champagne that cost more per bottle than I spent on groceries in a month. I was invited, of course. I was the mother of the bride. But I felt like a ghost at my own daughter's wedding. I sat at a table near the back with distant relatives I'd never met. Tessa barely spoke to me all night. She was too busy circulating among Preston's family friends, wealthy business associates, society people whose names I recognized from gossip columns. Preston's mother, Constance, introduced herself exactly once. She looked me up and down with eyes like a hawk assessing prey. "So, you're Tessa's mother?" She said, her tone dripping with something between pity and disdain. "How quaint that you did hair. Manual labor is so noble." Then she glided away before I could respond. I danced one dance with Tessa for the traditional mother-daughter moment. She smiled for the photographer but barely met my eyes. When the song ended, she hugged me quickly and whispered, "Thanks for coming, Mom," before rushing off to greet someone else. I left before the reception ended. No one noticed. After the wedding, Tessa and Preston moved into a sprawling penthouse overlooking Central Park. She sent me pictures once. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a terrace bigger than my entire apartment. "Isn't it gorgeous?" she texted. "Beautiful, honey," I replied. "I'd love to visit sometime." "We're still getting settled," she wrote back. "Maybe once everything's unpacked." That invitation never came. Our relationship became a series of brief text exchanges and missed calls. I'd try to reach her on weekends. She'd text back hours later, "Sorry, was at brunch." "Sorry, was at a charity gala." "Sorry, was out of town." The monthly lunches we used to have stopped. She canceled 3 times in a row, then stopped suggesting new dates altogether. My birthday came and went. She sent a generic greeting card with a gift certificate to a department store tucked inside. No personal note, no phone call, just a card she'd probably asked an assistant to send. When I called to thank her, it went to voicemail. I started to understand. My daughter was ashamed of me, ashamed of where she came from, ashamed of the mother who'd raised her in a rundown apartment and worked with her hands for a living. I wasn't polished like Constance. I didn't summer in the Hamptons or winter in Aspen. I didn't know which fork to use at fancy dinners or how to make small talk about the stock market. I was just Fern, the hairdresser from Queens, the single mom who'd done her best. And my best wasn't good enough anymore. Last December, I held on to hope. Christmas had always been our special time. No matter how busy life got, we'd always spent Christmas together. Hot chocolate, old movies, homemade cookies. It was our tradition. I texted Tessa in early December asking about plans. She didn't respond for 3 days. When she finally replied, my heart shattered. "Mom, about Christmas. Preston and I discussed, and we think it's best to keep it small this year. Just close family, I hope you understand." I stared at those words until they blurred. Just close family, as if I wasn't her family. As if I wasn't her. As if I hadn't been the only family she had for most of her life. My hands shook as I typed back. "No problem, sweetheart. Have a wonderful Christmas." She sent back a thumbs-up emoji. Not even words, just an emoji. I spent Christmas alone last year. I heated up a frozen meal and watched It's a Wonderful Life by myself. I scrolled through Tessa's social media posts. She'd uploaded dozens of photos. The Whitmore family gathered around an enormous Christmas tree, Preston's siblings and their children, Constance presiding over the festivities like a queen, champagne, caviar, designer gifts. Not one photo included me. Not one caption mentioned that she had a mother who existed. I went to bed that night and made a decision. Something inside me shifted. I'd spent my entire adult life sacrificing everything for my daughter. I'd worked myself to exhaustion. I'd gone without so she could have. I'd loved her unconditionally, asking nothing in return except to be part of her life. And she'd cut me out like I was nothing. That night, I decided it was time to start living for myself. What Tessa didn't know, what nobody knew except my accountant and my financial advisor, was that I wasn't actually poor. 15 years ago, when Tessa was still in high school, I received a letter from a lawyer in Phoenix, Arizona. My grandmother, Lorraine, had passed away. I barely knew her. She'd been estranged from my mother for decades over some family disagreement I never fully understood. I'd met her maybe twice in my entire life. The lawyer informed me that Lorraine had left me her entire estate. $400,000. I sat in that lawyer's office in complete shock. $400,000. It was more money than I'd ever imagined having. It was freedom, security, everything I'd struggled for, but I didn't touch it. Not for myself, anyway. I could have moved us to a better apartment. I could have quit one of my jobs. I could have bought myself nice clothes, taken vacations, lived differently. But I didn't want Tessa growing up thinking money solved everything. I didn't want her to become entitled or lazy. I wanted her to understand hard work, sacrifice, and humility. So I made a different choice. I took that inheritance and invested it. I researched for months, reading books on investing, taking online courses, consulting with financial advisors. This was 2010, right after the market crash. Everything was undervalued. It was the perfect time to buy. I put $100,000 into index funds, another $100,000 into individual tech stocks, companies I believed in, Apple, Amazon, Google. Everyone thought I was crazy for putting so much into technology, but I had a feeling. I used the remaining $200,000 as a down payment on a small 2-bedroom condo in Brooklyn. The neighborhood was rough then, but I could see it was improving. Young families moving in, coffee shops opening. I bought it, fixed it up with my own hands, and rented it out. The rental income covered the mortgage and gave me a small profit each month. Over the next 15 years, I watched my investments grow. Those tech stocks I bought, they exploded. My $100,000 investment became worth over $1 million. The index funds steadily climbed. The Brooklyn condo. That neighborhood gentrified completely. The property value tripled. I sold it 5 years ago for 3 times what I paid and used the profit to buy 2 more rental properties. I continued working at the salon, not because I needed the money, but because I loved it. I loved my clients. I loved making people feel beautiful. It gave me purpose and kept me grounded. I kept my same apartment in Queens, drove the same old car, lived the same modest lifestyle. But I wasn't broke. Far from it. I monitored my portfolio obsessively. I reinvested dividends. I bought low and sold high. I was patient and disciplined. By the time Tessa married Preston, my net worth had climbed to $12 million. By this year, it had reached $32 million. $32 million. And nobody knew. Not my coworkers, not my clients, not my friends, and certainly not Tessa. I'd always planned to tell her eventually. Maybe when she had kids of her own. Maybe when she was more mature. I'd dreamed of surprising her someday, of helping her buy her first house, of setting up trust funds for my future grandchildren. I'd imagined her face lighting up when she realized her mom had been quietly building a fortune for the family. But then she started treating me like an embarrassment. Then she married into wealth and forgot where she came from. Then she banned me from Christmas. And I thought, why should I tell her now? Why should she get to benefit from my hard work when she can't even be bothered to visit me? Instead, I made a different decision. In January, I started house hunting. I wasn't looking for something to impress anyone. I was looking for something for me, a place where I could finally live the life I denied myself for so long. A place that reflected everything I'd accomplished. It took 2 months, but I found it. A stunning estate in Westchester County, about 40 minutes north of Manhattan. 6,000 square feet of elegant architecture. 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. Soaring ceilings with exposed beams, walls of windows overlooking the Hudson River, a gourmet kitchen with top-of-the-line appliances, a master suite with a fireplace and a balcony, a library with built-in bookshelves, a home theater, a wine cellar. Outside, 2 acres of meticulously landscaped grounds, a infinity pool that seemed to spill into the river beyond, a tennis court, a greenhouse, rose gardens, ancient oak trees providing shade and privacy. The asking price was $28 million. I offered $25 million cash. The sellers accepted immediately. I closed on the house in March and moved in 2 weeks later. I hired an interior designer, but I made all the final decisions myself. I wanted the house to feel warm and inviting, not like some cold museum. We chose comfortable furniture and soft fabrics, warm colors, art that made me smile, books everywhere, fresh flowers in every room. My bedroom became my sanctuary, a king-sized bed with the softest sheets I'd ever felt, blackout curtains so I could sleep in, a reading nook by the window where I could watch the sunrise over the water, a bathroom with a soaking tub big enough to swim in, and a shower with 6 different jets. I bought myself beautiful clothes not to impress anyone, but because I could finally afford them and I deserved them. Cashmere sweaters, silk blouses, well-made jeans that actually fit. I got my hair professionally colored for the first time in years, covering the gray I'd been ignoring. I started taking art classes. I joined a book club with other women in the neighborhood. I hired a personal trainer who came to my home gym 3 times a week. I learned to play tennis on my own court. For the first time in my adult life, I was living. I made friends quickly in Westchester. My next-door neighbor, Helen, was a widow in her early 60s, whose husband had left her very well provided for. She had a wicked sense of humor and a generous heart. We bonded immediately over afternoon tea on my terrace. Helen introduced me to the social scene. Charity events, gallery openings, wine tastings. At first, I felt like an imposter, but I quickly realized these people weren't so different from anyone else. Some were kind, some were snobs, most were somewhere in between. And you know what, I fit in just fine. Because money doesn't make you better than anyone else. It just gives you different problems. I kept working at the salon 2 days a week. Rosa was thrilled that I was staying on, even though I'd told her I was moving. The commute was longer, but I didn't mind. My clients were like family. They'd been coming to me for years. I wasn't about to abandon them just because I had money now. None of them knew about my new house. I'd park my car a few blocks away and walk to the salon in my simple work clothes. As far as they knew, I was still the same old Fern. But when I drove back to Westchester each evening, I'd pull into my circular driveway park under the portico and step into my beautiful home. I'd pour myself a glass of wine from my temperature-controlled wine cellar. I'd sit on my terrace and watch the sunset paint the river gold. And I'd think about Tessa, about how she had no idea, about how she'd looked down on me while I was secretly wealthier than Preston's entire family. The thought made me smile. In June, I decided to reach out. I sent Tessa a text. "Hi, honey, I've moved to a new place. Would love for you to come visit for dinner sometime. Here's the address." I attached the Westchester address. She responded 6 hours later. "Mom, that's so far. I'm swamped with work right now. Maybe later?" "Of course," I wrote back. "Whenever you have time." Weeks passed, then months. She never asked about the new place, never expressed curiosity about why I'd moved or where I was living now. She simply didn't care enough to wonder. In September, I saw on social media that she and Preston had taken a 2-week vacation to the Maldives. Overwater bungalows, private butlers, underwater dining. She posted photos every day. But she couldn't find time to drive 40 minutes to see her mother. That's when I knew for certain. Tessa didn't care about me. She cared about appearances, about status, about being part of Preston's world, and I was no longer sad about it. I was done being sad. As November rolled around, I felt that familiar tightening in my chest. The holidays were approaching. Thanksgiving, Christmas, the times of year that used to mean everything to Tessa and me. I told myself not to hope, not to expect anything. But old habits die hard. Thanksgiving came and went. Tessa sent a group text to what I assume was her entire contact list. "Happy Thanksgiving to everyone." Generic. Impersonal. No phone call. No invitation. Nothing. I spent Thanksgiving with Helen and her family. Her son Nathaniel came from Boston with his daughter. We had a lovely dinner, but it wasn't the same as having my own daughter there. Then came December. On the 3rd, I received a text from Tessa. My heart jumped when I saw her name on my screen. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe she'd learned from last year's mistake. I opened the message. Hi, Mom. About Christmas again. Preston's family is hosting at their estate in Connecticut this year. It's going to be quite formal, and his parents have a specific guest list. I hope you understand it's not personal. Maybe we can meet up in January. I read it 3 times, each time feeling a different emotion. First hurt, then anger, then something cold and hard settling in my chest. Not personal. How could excluding your mother from Christmas be anything but personal? And that phrase, quite formal, as if I couldn't handle formal, as if I'd show up in ripped jeans and embarrass her, as if I hadn't raised her to have better manners than this. My hands trembled as I typed my response. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her exactly how cruel she was being, to ask her when she'd become such a snob. Instead, I wrote, "Of course, dear, enjoy your holiday." She responded within seconds this time. "Thanks for understanding, Mom. Love you." Love you. 2 words that meant nothing when they weren't backed up by action. I set my phone down and stared out the window of my library. The December sun was setting over the Hudson, painting everything in shades of orange and pink. This beautiful house, this beautiful view, this beautiful life I'd built. And my daughter had no idea any of it existed. That's when the idea formed. Not revenge exactly, but justice. A reckoning. I picked up my phone and called Helen. "I'm throwing a Christmas party," I announced, "a big one, and I want your help planning it." Helen's delighted laugh rang through the phone. "Now we're talking. When were you thinking of Christmas Eve, cocktails at 6, dinner at 8? How many guests?" 30, I said firmly. "Maybe 40. Everyone we know. Everyone who's been kind to me since I moved here. And I want it to be spectacular." "Fern," Helen said warmly, "are you finally ready to stop hiding your light under a bushel?" "Yes," I said. "Yes, I am." Over the next 2 weeks, Helen and I planned the party with military precision. We hired Westchester's premier event planning company. We designed a menu that would make 5-star restaurants jealous. Fresh oysters flown in from Maine, lobster tails, filet mignon, a sushi station with a chef preparing everything to order, artisan cheeses, chocolate fountains, champagne, and lots of it. Not just any champagne, but Cristal. We hired a decorator who transformed my already beautiful home into a winter wonderland. A 12-foot Christmas tree arrived and was installed in the grand foyer, decorated with thousands of white lights and elegant silver and gold ornaments. Garlands wound up the staircase. Candles flickered in every window. The outdoor trees were wrapped in tiny white lights that made the whole property glow. Fresh flower arrangements appeared in every room. White roses, amaryllis, orchids. The house smelled like pine and cinnamon and luxury. We hired a jazz quartet to play during cocktail hour and a pianist for dinner. We arranged for valet parking. We ordered custom cocktail napkins with my initials embossed in gold. I went shopping for a dress, not just any dress, the dress. I found it at a boutique in Manhattan. Navy blue floor length with delicate beading on the bodice. Elegant, sophisticated, expensive. I paired it with simple diamond earrings I'd bought myself and navy heels. I sent out invitations on thick cream cardstock. Formal, traditional, beautiful. The RSVPs poured in. Everyone was coming. Helen and Nathaniel, of course. My neighbors from both sides. The women from my book club, my tennis instructor. Several clients from the salon who'd become genuine friends over the years. Rosa and her husband. People from the charity boards I'd recently joined. 42 people confirmed. I didn't invite Tessa. Why would I? She'd made it clear I wasn't welcome at her Christmas. She could spend her formal holiday with Preston's family while I celebrated with people who actually wanted me around. 3 days before Christmas, I called the salon to wish everyone happy holidays. One of my longtime clients, Brenda, answered. She'd been coming to me for 10 years and we'd grown close. "Fern, honey, I'm so glad you called," she gushed. "I'm so excited for your party on Christmas Eve. I already picked out my outfit." "I can't wait to see you," I told her honestly. "Are you sure I can bring my husband? I don't want to impose." "Brenda, you could bring your whole extended family and I wouldn't mind. The more the merrier." "You're too good to us," she said warmly. "I still can't believe you live in that gorgeous house." When I saw the invitation with your address, I looked it up online. Fern, it's like something from a magazine. I smiled. I've been very fortunate. You deserve it, sweetie. After all those years of working so hard, I'm just thrilled you're finally living the good life. We chatted a few more minutes before hanging up. I felt lighter than I had in months. This party wasn't about showing off, it was about celebrating with people who genuinely cared about me. People who didn't judge me based on my bank account or my social connections. People who loved me for being Fern. Christmas Eve arrived cold and clear. Fresh snow had fallen overnight, covering my property in pristine white. It looked like a Christmas card. I spent the morning overseeing final preparations. The caterers arrived at noon and took over my kitchen. The florist made last-minute adjustments to the arrangements. The event staff set up the bar and arranged the seating. The musicians arrived to set up their equipment. By 5 o'clock, everything was perfect. I went upstairs to get ready. I took a long bath in my soaking tub, letting the stress of the past year dissolve in the lavender-scented water. I did my makeup carefully. Nothing too dramatic, just enough to highlight my features. I styled my hair in soft waves. I put on my navy dress and stood in front of the mirror. I looked good. More than that, I looked happy. Truly happy. At 5:45, the first guests began to arrive. The evening was magical from the very first moment. Cars began winding up my driveway as the sun set their headlights twinkling through the light snowfall. The valet service I'd hired parked each vehicle with practiced efficiency. My guests walked up the path to my front door, which was adorned with an enormous wreath made of fresh pine white roses and silver ribbons. I stood in the foyer greeting everyone personally. Helen arrived first with Nathaniel and his daughter Sophie, a bright-eyed 8-year-old who gasped when she saw the Christmas tree. Miss Fern, this is the most beautiful tree I've ever seen. Sophie breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. I knelt down to her level, not caring about my expensive dress. Would you like to help me light it later? There's a special switch. Her face lit up brighter than any Christmas light. Really? Can I, Dad? Nathaniel smiled warmly at me. That's very kind of you, Fern. Nonsense, I said, standing up. What's Christmas without a little magic? My neighbors arrived next, a lovely couple named Barbara and William, who owned the estate to my left. They brought a beautifully wrapped bottle of vintage port. Fern, your home is absolutely stunning, Barbara said, looking around with genuine appreciation. We've been neighbors for months and we've admired it from the outside, but this is breathtaking. Thank you, I said warmly. Please go help yourselves to champagne. The bar is set up in the living room. The guests kept coming. My book club friends arrived in a group, laughing and chatting. My tennis instructor, Marco, came with his wife. Rosa from the salon appeared with her husband, Antonio, both of them dressed to the nines. Rosa hugged me tight. Mio Dio, Fern, she whispered in my ear. You've been keeping secrets. I laughed. A few. Brenda arrived with her husband, and she immediately pulled out her phone. Fern, this place is incredible. Do you mind if I take a few photos? My sister will never believe this. Of course, I said easily. Take all the photos you want. By 7 o'clock, my home was filled with the sounds of laughter and conversation and live jazz music drifting through the rooms. The champagne flowed freely. Waiters circulated with trays of hors d'oeuvres. People mingled on the terrace despite the cold, admiring the view of the river, sparkling with reflected lights from the opposite shore. I moved through the crowd, making sure everyone had what they needed, introducing people who didn't know each other, soaking in the warmth and joy filling my home. Nathaniel found me near the fireplace and handed me a glass of champagne. You look radiant, Fern. Thank you, I said, meaning it. I feel happy. You deserve to be, he said quietly. Helen told me a little about your daughter. I'm sorry she's not here. I shook my head. I'm not. Not tonight. Tonight is about the people who choose to be here. He raised his glass. To chosen family, then. To chosen family, I echoed, clinking my glass against his. At 8 o'clock, we moved into the dining room for dinner. I'd had the event staff set up one long table that could accommodate everyone. Candles flickered down the center. The good china gleamed. Crystal glasses caught the light. The meal was extraordinary, course after course of beautifully prepared food. Conversation flowed as easily as the wine. People shared stories, laughed until they cried, toasted to friendship and good fortune and new beginnings. I sat at the head of the table looking down at all these wonderful people who'd become part of my life and felt a contentment I'd never experienced before. Around 9:30, as we were finishing dessert, a rich chocolate torte with raspberry sauce, Brenda excused herself to use the restroom. On her way back, I saw her pause by the Christmas tree, pull out her phone, and start taking photos. I didn't think anything of it. She'd been documenting the evening on social media all night. I'd seen her posting pictures of the food, the decorations, the view. What I didn't know was that this particular post would change everything. Brenda uploaded a series of photos to Instagram. The towering Christmas tree, the elegant table setting, the view from my terrace, and one photo of me standing by the fireplace in my navy dress, champagne glass in hand, smiling genuinely at something Nathaniel had just said. Her caption read, "Blessed to celebrate Christmas at my dear friend Fern's incredible mansion in Westchester. $25 million of pure elegance. This woman is the definition of grace and generosity. Thank you for including us in your beautiful home, Fern. Best Christmas ever." She tagged my name. She added location tags. She used hashtags like Christmas Luxury Mansion Westchester Blessed. Brenda had 3,000 followers, many of them people from Queens who'd known me for years. Some of them knew Tessa. Some of them followed Tessa on social media. The post started getting likes immediately, then comments, then shares. Wait, is this the same Fern who does hair at Bella's? OMG, I had no idea Fern was loaded. That Christmas tree alone probably cost more than my car. She deserves it. Fern is the sweetest person. Within an hour, the post had been shared dozens of times. People were tagging other people. Look at this. Can you believe it? Good for her. My phone, which I'd left on silent in my clutch purse in the library, started buzzing. But I didn't know it. I was too busy enjoying my party. At 10 o'clock, I gathered everyone in the foyer for the tree lighting ceremony I'd promised Sophie. The little girl stood next to me, bouncing with excitement as I counted down. 3, 2, 1. Sophie flipped the switch and the entire tree burst into light. Not just the white lights we could see, but hundreds of tiny colored lights woven deeper into the branches, creating layers of sparkle and magic. Everyone applauded. Sophie threw her arms around my waist. "Thank you, Miss Fern. This is the best Christmas ever." I hugged her back, blinking away sudden tears. This child I barely knew was giving me more love than my own daughter had in years. The party continued until nearly midnight. People started leaving around 11, each one hugging me goodbye, thanking me profusely, telling me what a wonderful evening it had been. "We have to do this again," Barbara insisted. "Absolutely," I agreed. Rosa kissed both my cheeks. "You are a good woman, Fern. Don't you ever forget that." By midnight, only Helen and Nathaniel remained helping me tidy up, even though I'd hired people to clean in the morning. "Leave it," I told them. "Go home. Get some sleep. It's Christmas." Helen hugged me tight. "Merry Christmas, dear friend. I'm so glad you came into my life." "Merry Christmas, Helen. Thank you for everything." After they left, I walked through my quiet house. Candles still flickered. The tree still glowed. Champagne glasses sat abandoned on various surfaces. But instead of feeling empty, the house felt full. Full of the laughter and love that had filled it all evening. I made my way to my bedroom, slipped out of my dress, and changed into pajamas. Only then did I remember my phone. I retrieved it from my purse in the library and turned it back on. Instantly, it started buzzing like an angry hornet. Notification after notification flooded the screen. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails, social media alerts, and nearly all of them were from Tessa. I stared at the screen, watching the numbers climb. 15 missed calls, 20, 30. The phone kept loading more notifications. My heart started pounding. I opened my call log. Every single call was from Tessa, starting at 8:30 and continuing until just a few minutes ago. The final count, 59 missed calls. 59 times my daughter had tried to reach me in the span of 3 hours. I scrolled through the text messages, my hands shaking slightly. 8:47 p.m. Mom, call me. 8:53 p.m. Mom, seriously, call me back. 9:02 p.m. Is this real? 9:08 p.m. Did you really buy a mansion? 9:15 p.m. Why didn't you tell me? 9:23 p.m. Mom, Please call me back. 9:35 p.m. I can't believe you have a $25 million house and never said anything. 9:47 p.m. We need to talk. 10:01 p.m. Why aren't you answering? 10:10 p.m. I'm coming over right now. 10:45 p.m. I'm at your address, but there's a gate. How do I get in? 11:02 p.m. Mom, this is crazy. You have to talk to me. 11:34 p.m. I'll be there first thing tomorrow morning. We need to talk face to face. There were more. So many more. Each one more desperate than the last. I also had missed calls from Preston, from Constance, from several numbers I didn't recognize. I checked my social media. Brenda's post had exploded. Over 2,000 likes now. Hundreds of comments, dozens of shares. And Tessa had commented on it. This is my mother, Mom. Why didn't you tell me about any of this? I set the phone down on my nightstand and lay back against my pillows, staring at the ceiling. 59 calls. In 1 year, my daughter had barely called me 59 times total. But tonight, when she discovered I had money, she'd called 59 times in 3 hours. I could see exactly what was happening. Tessa had been at Preston's family estate in Connecticut, probably showing off, probably feeling superior to everyone around her. Then someone, maybe one of Preston's cousins or friends who followed Brenda online, had seen the post, had shown it to Tessa, and Tessa's carefully constructed world had come crashing down. Because her poor, embarrassing mother, the one who wasn't good enough for formal family gatherings, turned out to be wealthier than the Whitmores. I picked up my phone again and looked at the screen. Another text had just come through. I'll be there at 10 a.m. tomorrow. We need to talk. I typed a response, my fingers steady. Merry Christmas, Tessa. Then I turned off my phone, completely set it in my nightstand drawer, and went to sleep in my comfortable bed in my beautiful house, surrounded by the lingering warmth of an evening spent with people who genuinely cared about me. For the first time in a very long time, I slept peacefully. Christmas morning dawned bright and cold. Sunlight streamed through my bedroom windows, catching the frost on the glass and making it sparkle like diamonds. I woke slowly, stretching in my luxurious bed, taking my time. I made coffee in my gorgeous kitchen using my espresso machine that probably cost more than my first car. I stood by the window watching snow dust the barren trees along the river, sipping the perfectly made cappuccino. It was 9:30. Tessa had said she'd be here at 10. I wondered if she'd actually come. Part of me hoped she wouldn't. Part of me needed her to. At 9:50, I turned my phone back on. Immediately, it started buzzing again with new messages, but I ignored them. Instead, I went to the intercom system connected to my front gate and waited. At exactly 10 o'clock, the gate camera showed a black Mercedes SUV pulling up. Preston's car. I could see 2 people inside. The intercom buzzed. I pressed the button. Yes, Mom. Tessa's voice sounded small and uncertain through the speaker. It's me. Can we come in? I hesitated for a long moment. Then I pressed the button to open the gate. Follow the driveway to the house. I watched on the camera as the gate swung open and the Mercedes drove through. I took a deep breath, set down my coffee cup, and walked to the front door. By the time they parked under the portico and got out, I was standing in the open doorway. Tessa stepped out of the passenger side, and I barely recognized her. She was wearing expensive athleisure clothes, full makeup at 10 in the morning, her hair blown out perfectly, but her eyes were red like she'd been crying or hadn't slept. Preston emerged from the driver's side looking uncomfortable in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. He wouldn't quite meet my eyes. Hi, Mom, Tessa said quietly. Merry Christmas, Tessa, I replied calmly. Preston. Merry Christmas, Fern, he mumbled. Tessa looked past me into the house and I watched her face change. Her mouth fell open slightly, her eyes went wide, the soaring ceilings of my foyer, the crystal chandelier, the sweeping staircase, the marble floors, the massive Christmas tree that Sophie had lit last night still glowing in the morning light. Oh my God, she whispered. I stepped aside. Come in. They walked past me, both of them turning in slow circles, taking it all in. I closed the door behind them and led them into the living room. The remnants of last night's party were still visible. Empty champagne bottles waiting to be collected. Plates on the piano. The room still smelled like expensive perfume and candle wax. Please sit, I said, gesturing to the cream-colored sofa. They sat. I took the armchair across from them, crossing my legs, folding my hands in my lap. Tessa couldn't stop staring around the room. Mom, this is how how can I afford it? I asked calmly. Is that what you want to know? She nodded mutely. I invested wisely. I said simply, for 15 years. 15 years? Her voice cracked. You've had money for 15 years and you never told me. You never asked. I pointed out. You never cared about my life unless it was convenient for you. That's not fair. She started, but I held up a hand. Isn't it? When was the last time you asked me how I was doing? When was the last time you visited me? When was the last time you included me in your life, Tessa? She looked down at her hands. I've been busy. Busy. I let the word hang in the air. Too busy for your mother. Too busy to come to Christmas last year. Too busy to come this year. But not too busy now, are you? Now that you know I have money. That's not why I'm here. She protested, tears starting to stream down her face. I was shocked. Okay, I saw that post and I couldn't believe it. I tried calling you because I needed to understand what was happening. 59 times, I said quietly. You called 59 times in 3 hours. Do you know how many times you called me in the entire past year, maybe 20? And half of those I called you first. Tessa was crying openly now. I know I've been a terrible daughter. Yes, I agreed. You have been. Preston finally spoke up. Mrs. Fern, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Tessa loves you. She's just been under a lot of pressure from, he trailed off. From your mother, I finished for him. From Constance, who decided I wasn't good enough to be around, who made my daughter ashamed of where she came from. He had the decency to look embarrassed. My mother can be difficult. Your mother is a snob, I said bluntly. And you let her treat my daughter like a social climbing trophy instead of a person with her own family and history. Mom, Tessa sobbed. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Constance said, she said you wouldn't fit in at family events, that you'd be uncomfortable, and I listened to her instead of standing up for you. I was weak, and I was wrong, and I'm so sorry. I looked at my daughter, mascara running down her cheeks, designer clothes that cost more than I used to make in a month, sitting in my $25 million house that she never knew existed. Why are you here, Tessa? I asked quietly. Right now in this moment, why did you come? Because you're my mother, she whispered. Because I've been awful to you, and I needed to apologize in person. Because when I saw those pictures last night, I realized I don't even know who you are anymore. And that's my fault. Yes, I agreed. It is your fault. She flinched like I'd slapped her. But it's also mine, I continued. I let you treat me poorly because I didn't want to lose you completely. I made excuses for you. I told myself you were busy, you were young, you were adjusting to a new life. I enabled your behavior by accepting it. I stood up and walked to the window looking out at my snow-covered property. This house, this money, it doesn't change who I am. I'm still Fern. I still do hair at Bella's twice a week because I love my clients. I still drive an old car because it runs fine. I still shop at regular stores most of the time. Money is just a tool, Tessa. It's not an identity. I turned back to face her. But you let money become your identity. You let Preston's family's wealth define you. You became someone who judges people by their bank accounts and their social standing. Someone who bans their own mother from Christmas because she might not be formal enough. I know, she sobbed. I know I did. And I hate myself for it. I don't want you to hate yourself. I said, my voice softening slightly. I want you to learn from this. I want you to remember where you came from. I want you to be the girl who used to help me make spaghetti sauce and who dreamed of making the world better, not the woman who excludes people because they don't meet some arbitrary standard of worthiness. Tessa stood up, took a tentative step toward me. Can you forgive me? I looked at my daughter. Despite everything, I still loved her. She was still the little girl I'd raised somewhere under all that designer armor. I don't know, I answered honestly. Not yet. You hurt me deeply, Tessa, for years. This isn't something that gets fixed with one apology. I'll do whatever it takes, she said desperately. I'll make it up to you. I promise. I don't want your promises, I said firmly. I want your actions. I want to see real change, not because I have money now, but because I'm your mother and I deserve better than how you've treated me. You're right, she whispered. You deserve so much better. Preston stood up, putting a hand on Tessa's shoulder. Fern, for what it's worth, I apologize too. I should have encouraged Tessa to maintain her relationship with you. I should have stood up to my mother. I was raised to prioritize appearances over authenticity, and I've done both of us a disservice. I looked at him surprised. It was the most genuine thing I'd ever heard him say. Thank you, Preston. I appreciate that. Would you? Tessa hesitated. Would you be willing to have coffee with me sometime? Just the two of us? No agenda, no expectations. Just mother and daughter. I considered this. Maybe, let me think about it. Okay, she said, wiping her eyes. That's fair. They started toward the door, and I walked them out. At the threshold, Tessa turned back. Mom, the party last night. It looked beautiful. All those people. You seemed really happy in the photos. I was happy, I told her. Happier than I've been in a long time. I'm glad, she said, and I could hear that she meant it. You deserve to be happy. After they left, I stood in my doorway watching their car disappear down the driveway. The gate closed behind them with a soft clang. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired. And maybe a tiny bit hopeful. The weeks following Christmas were strange and transformative. Tessa didn't bombard me with calls or texts. Instead, she sent one message every few days. Simple things. Good morning, Mom. Hope you're having a nice day. Saw a cardinal outside my window and thought of you. Remember how you used to say they were good luck? Just wanted to say I love you. No demands, no expectations, just small gestures reaching across the divide she'd created. I responded to some and ignored others depending on my mood. I wasn't ready to let her off the hook yet. Constance surprisingly sent me a handwritten note. Actual paper, actual handwriting delivered by messenger. Dear Fern, it read, it has come to my attention that I have gravely misjudged you. I allowed my own prejudices to cloud my perception, and for that I apologize. You have raised a remarkable young woman, and I should have shown you the respect you deserve from the beginning. If you would ever care to join us for tea, I would be honored. Sincerely, Constance Whitmore. I read it twice, then filed it away in a drawer. Maybe I'd respond eventually, maybe I wouldn't. Preston sent flowers with a card that simply said, "Thank you for your grace." But the biggest change came from Tessa herself. In mid-January, she called and asked if she could take me to lunch. Not at some fancy restaurant in Manhattan, at a little cafe in my neighborhood in Westchester. I agreed. We met on a Tuesday afternoon. She arrived early, nervous, fidgeting with her napkin. When I walked in, she stood up immediately. Hi, Mom. Hi, honey. We sat down, ordered sandwiches and tea, and for the first few minutes made awkward small talk about the weather and the cafe's decor. Then Tessa set down her teacup and looked me in the eyes. I've been seeing a therapist, she said quietly. I raised my eyebrows. Oh. Yeah, Preston suggested it after Christmas. He said I needed to figure out why I let myself become someone I'm not proud of. So I found someone, and I've been going twice a week. That's good, I said carefully. That takes courage. I'm learning a lot about myself, she continued, about how I let fear control me. Fear of not being good enough for Preston's world. Fear of being judged, fear of, I don't know, not measuring up. And I took all that fear and turned it into shame about where I came from. About you. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. You worked 2 jobs to give me every opportunity. You sacrificed everything so I could have a better life. And I repaid you by being embarrassed of you. I'm so ashamed of who I became. I reached across the table and took her hand. Tessa, I don't want you to be ashamed. I want you to learn and grow and do better. I am, she promised. I'm trying. I quit my job at Whitmore Properties. I nearly dropped my tea. You what? I quit. I'm going back to school to get my MBA, but I'm focusing on nonprofit management. I want to do something meaningful with my life, not just collect a paycheck from Preston's family. I want to be someone you can be proud of again. I squeezed her hand. I've always been proud of you, Tessa. Even when I was hurt by you. You're my daughter. That never changes. She started crying in earnest then, and I moved my chair around the table to sit next to her, holding her while she sobbed. I missed you so much, Mom, she whispered. I missed us. I missed us too, baby. We stayed at that cafe for 3 hours talking, really talking the way we used to when she was younger. She told me about her therapy sessions, about the realizations she was having about her marriage, and how she and Preston were working on building something more authentic. I told her about my life in Westchester, about my new friends, about Helen and Nathaniel, and the charity work I'd gotten involved in. I want to help, Tessa said suddenly. With your charity work. Whatever you're doing, I want to be involved. If you'll let me. I studied her face, looking for signs of performance or manipulation. But all I saw was my daughter genuinely wanting to reconnect. Okay, I said slowly. I volunteer with an organization that helps single mothers. We provide childcare job training and financial literacy classes. We could use more volunteers. Her face lit up. Really? You'd let me? If you're serious about it, yes. I am. I absolutely am. And she was. Over the next few months, Tessa showed up every single week. She helped with childcare while mothers attended classes. She tutored women working on their GEDs. She even donated a significant amount of money to expand the program. But more importantly, she listened to these women's stories. Stories that weren't so different from mine. Single mothers working multiple jobs, women sacrificing everything for their children, women who were stronger than anyone gave them credit for. I watched my daughter slowly transform back into someone I recognized. The pretense fell away. The designer armor came off. She started showing up to volunteer in jeans and sweaters instead of expensive outfits. She laughed more. She seemed lighter. We started having dinner together once a week, rotating between her place, my place, and various restaurants. Sometimes Preston joined us, and I found that when Tessa was more herself, he was more genuine too. He was actually quite intelligent and thoughtful when he wasn't trying to impress anyone. In March, Tessa invited me to Easter brunch at the Whitmore estate. I almost said no, but she looked so hopeful that I agreed. Constance greeted me at the door personally. Fern, how lovely to see you. Please come in. The brunch was surprisingly pleasant. Constance went out of her way to include me in conversations. Preston's father, whom I'd barely met before, turned out to be a history buff, and we spent an hour discussing World War II's. But the best part was watching Tessa. She stayed close to me all day, introducing me to people with genuine pride in her voice. This is my mother, Fern. Not with shame or hesitation, but with love. After brunch, as I was leaving, Constance pulled me aside. I owe you a deeper apology than the one I wrote, she said quietly. I judged you based on external factors, and I influenced Tessa to do the same. That was wrong of me. You've raised an exceptional daughter, and I should have seen that from the beginning. Thank you, Constance, I said. I appreciate that. For what it's worth, watching you handle this whole situation with such grace has taught me something about what real class looks like. It's not about money or social standing. It's about character, and you have more character than most people I know. Coming from Constance Whitmore, that was practically a confession. By summer, Tessa and I had rebuilt something solid. It wasn't the same as before. We couldn't go back to what we'd had when she was young, but we'd created something new, something more honest. She came to my house for the 4th of July. We had a small gathering, just family. Helen and Nathaniel joined us along with Preston. We grilled burgers, watched fireworks over the river, and laughed until our sides hurt. One evening in July, Tessa and I sat on my terrace watching the sunset. She had her head on my shoulder like she used to do when she was little. "Mom," she said quietly. "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I didn't deserve it." I kissed the top of her head. "You're my daughter, Tessa. I could never give up on you. Even when I was horrible. Even then, although I reserve the right to be very angry at you for a very long time." She laughed. "Fair enough." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn pink and orange and purple. "Can I ask you something?" Tessa said. "Always. If you'd had all this money when I was growing up, would you have told me?" I thought about it carefully. Honestly, probably not right away. I wanted you to learn the value of hard work and humility. I wanted you to understand that money doesn't define your worth. I lost sight of that, she admitted. I let Preston's world convince me that money was the only thing that mattered. "But you found your way back," I pointed out, "Bunna. That's what counts." "Only because you showed me," she said. "You could have rubbed your wealth in my face. You could have made me feel terrible. Instead, you just lived your life. You surrounded yourself with people who valued you for who you are. You showed me what really matters." "Well," I said with a small smile, "it didn't hurt to let you sweat a little first." She laughed, and it was a real laugh, the kind I remembered from before everything got complicated. "Those 59 phone calls," she said. "I'm never going to live that down, am I?" "Absolutely not," I confirmed. "I'm going to bring that up at every opportunity for the rest of your life." "I deserve that." "Yes, you do." We laughed together as the sun dipped below the horizon. It's been almost a year since that Christmas Eve party. Almost a year since Brenda's Instagram post changed everything. My relationship with Tessa isn't perfect. We still have our moments of tension. She still occasionally slips into old habits, and I still call her out on it. But we're trying. Both of us are genuinely trying. She's finishing her MBA and has already lined up a job with a nonprofit focused on educational equity. She talks about her work with passion and purpose. She's even convinced Preston to join the board and donate a significant portion of his trust fund to the cause. I continue to live in my beautiful house, but it doesn't define me. I still work at Bella's, still drive my old car most days, still remember where I came from. The money has given me freedom and security, but it hasn't changed who I am at my core. Helen and I have become inseparable. She calls me her sister from another mister. Nathaniel has become like a son to me, and little Sophie lights up whenever she visits. I've traveled more in the past year than in my entire previous life. Paris, Rome, Tokyo. But my favorite place is still right here on my terrace, watching the Hudson River catch the light. The most surprising development, Constance and I have become something resembling friends. We have tea once a month, and she's actually quite witty when she's not trying to impress anyone. She confided in me that she'd spent her whole life performing for society, and watching me live authentically had inspired her to be more genuine. "You've taught this old dog some new tricks, Fern," she'd said over Earl Grey one afternoon. "As for the money, I've put it to good use. I've established a foundation that provides scholarships to children of single parents. I've expanded the single mother support program I volunteer with. I've anonymously paid off medical debts for families in need. Money, I've learned, is most valuable when you share it. But the most important thing I've learned is this: you cannot buy love or respect. You cannot purchase genuine relationships. And the people who value you only when they discover your net worth are not people worth having in your life." Tessa had to learn that lesson the hard way. So did I, in a different sense. Money didn't change me. It revealed who the people around me truly were. My daughter had to learn that worth isn't measured in dollars, but in love and respect and integrity. I spent decades sacrificing everything, thinking that was what a good mother does. But I learned that loving yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and I'd been running on empty for far too long. Setting boundaries with Tessa, refusing to accept poor treatment, choosing myself for once, these weren't acts of cruelty. They were acts of self-love. And ironically, they were also acts of love for her because I gave her the chance to become someone better. She and I are rebuilding our relationship slowly but surely. This time, it's built on the right foundation. Not money, not status, not obligation or guilt or fear. Just truth, just love, just mother and daughter learning to see each other clearly for the first time in years. So if you're wondering whether I answered those 59 calls, eventually I did. But not until I was ready. Not until I'd drawn my boundaries and stood my ground. Not until Tessa understood that respect isn't optional even in family relationships, especially in family relationships. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is teach someone that you won't accept anything less than respect, even from your own child, especially from your own child. That Christmas Eve, when my phone was ringing and ringing while I celebrated with people who genuinely valued me, I wasn't being vindictive. I was being honest. I was choosing joy over obligation. I was choosing people who chose me. And in doing so, I taught my daughter the most important lesson of her life, that a person's value has nothing to do with their bank account and everything to do with their character. She's still learning that lesson. So am I in different ways. But we're learning it together now, and that makes all the difference. My mansion is beautiful. My wealth is substantial. My life is comfortable in ways I never imagined. But the greatest treasure I have isn't any of those things. It's my daughter finally seeing me for who I truly am. It's the genuine friendships I've built. It's the peace I feel knowing I stood up for myself. It's the knowledge that I taught Tessa something more valuable than any inheritance, that integrity cannot be bought and self-respect is priceless. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love? Have you ever chosen yourself when everyone expected you to sacrifice? Have you ever stood your ground and demanded the respect you deserve? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. And if this resonated with you, please hit that like button and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about life, family, and finding your way back to yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that your worth is inherent, not earned, that love without respect is incomplete, and that it's never too late to choose yourself. Wherever you are on your journey, I hope you find the courage to live authentically and surround yourself with people who value you for exactly who you are. Wishing you all peace, love, and the strength to know your own worth. Until next time.